Of the Achaemenid Empire, he was the fifth great king. His name, Xerxes, means ruler of heroes. He is believed to have been born in 519 BC and died in 465 BC. His parents were Darius the Great and Atossa. His maternal grandfather was Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenid dynasty of the Persian Empire. Despite being the youngest of his brothers, he was designated as heir to the throne, successor to Darius the Great, his father, and even the firstborn, Artabazanes. So at the age of 35, he received the coronation in 486 BC, when Darius died. By that time, Egypt was subjected by the Persians, and when Xerxes I assumed the sovereignty, he victoriously put down a popular uprising in that country. In addition, there he left his brother Achaemenes in charge as provincial governor or satrap, a role that he fulfilled with authoritarianism and repression. Since his predecessors did not manage to reconcile the ancient civilizations with the Persian one and Xerxes, I could not do it either. He decided to eliminate the kingdom of Babylon 2 years after having assumed the power. After the Egyptian rebellion, such uprisings followed in other places, and Babylon had not been the exception. Even in one of them, the Persian satrap was assassinated. Xerxes I took harsh reprisals. He destroyed the wall and the temple of Marduk, the Asagila, and even melted the golden statue of the god. After this attack, the Babylonian splendor could never recover. This despotic attitude characterized him throughout his reign. Like his father, he had great expansionist projects, and his ultimate goal was to subdue continental Greece. But he maintained the enmity of Sparta, Athens, and the other Greek polis because they did not accept his hegemony in Asia Minor. Xerxes I is reputed to have been a hedonistic monarch rather than a good ruler. In fact, he is believed to have been less capable than his father. Court pleasures took him away from the goal of winning the invasion of Greece that he himself undertook in 481 BC. Nevertheless, it is important to highlight some of his victories as great king, for he was the most powerful ruler at the time. In 482 BC, he finally managed to control his empire by stabilizing all the territories that Darius had conquered. Like his father, who had led expansionist and invasion campaigns over Greece and Ionia, also in retaliation against the Ionian Revolt, and after which the First Medical War began in 492 BC and ended with the Athenian triumph over the Persians. In the Battle of Marathon, 490 BC, Xerxes decided to take revenge to avenge the defeat suffered by Darius I and declared the Second Persian invasion of Greece in 480 BC. This time, Xerxes I took the necessary time to plan the attack. He armed himself with a strong army and a large fleet. The Greek resistance was led by Sparta and Athens. About 70 polis joined in, but most of the Greek cities remained neutral or submitted to the Persians. The war lasted 2 years and ended with the triumph of the Greek allies. The Persian defeat meant to Xerxes I the loss of his naval power, most of which were Phoenician ships, the death of his cousin Mardonius, whom he had left in command of the conflict and who had been entrusted with the mission of invading Greece, and finally, the definitive expulsion of the Persians from European territory, including Ionia and the Aegean Islands. As curious data of the actions of Xerxes I in this war, the historian Herodotus narrates that he ordered to build a bridge of boats so that the infantry could cross from one side to the other of the narrow Hellespont, current Strait of the Dardanelles, that divides Europe and Asia and communicates the Aegean Sea with the inner sea of Marmara and its archipelago. This bridge was destroyed by a storm, to which Xerxes I ordered 300 lashes to be given to the sea. After this, the army was able to cross and arrived at Thermopylae, a legendary place full of hot springs where Heracles had died and which was considered the entrance to Greece. Despite the fierce resistance of King Leonidas and his Spartan army, which was joined by cadres from the Peloponnese, Thespiae, Phocea and Thebes, Xerxes I was confident that he had a much larger army. The great Persian king stoked the spirits of his warriors in a last battle in which they killed Leonidas. They mutilated him and impaled his head. Nevertheless, Leonidas and his army became heroes who symbolize even today the imperishable Spartan bravery. The Battle of Thermopylae delayed the Persian advance for 10 days, but the triumph meant that they were finally able to invade and take Thebes and Athens. The Athenian Acropolis was sacked, its temple was burned, and on its ruins the Parthenon was later built. On the other hand, in 480 BC, Herodotus also tells that Xerxes I installed in Salamis a throne on a small hill from where he could see the strait to see his ships pass and order his scribes to write down the names of the generals. He never imagined that the Athenian Themistocles would attack him with a naval ambush in which the Greeks finally triumphed. It was then that Xerxes I was forced to return to Asia and left Mardonius in charge. This cousin of Xerxes I died in the Battle of Plataea a year later. His death caused the Persian troops to lose, and thus Xerxes ended up disinterested in Greece, especially because the spoils of war were not comparable with the expenses involved in maintaining the war. Nevertheless, the great king sent to Susa the looted treasures, including numerous works of art that Alexander the Great later recovered. After this campaign, Xerxes I proclaimed himself a nationalist monarch and abandoned the universalist pretensions entrusted to him by his father. Of his reign, great constructions such as the Palace of the Apadana in Persepolis stood out, and in all of them he was inspired by the god Ahura Mazda, as it appears in several inscriptions. In addition, the territorial expansion of the Persian Empire went from Asia Minor to India, despite the obstacle represented by continental Greece. Xerxes I ruled 127 provinces, the largest empire up to that time. Moreover, the gold coin minted with his figure represented with a weapon and a spear was the largest international coin of that time, the daric, but also passed into history palace intrigues that left the great king the fame of having been a king of excesses, given to luxury and slavery. Some say that this was due to the envy he aroused among his adversaries, since it was considered that the opulence of his kingdom was a sign of arrogance. For that reason, in 465 BC, he and his son were killed in a palace coup d'etat by the vizier Artabanus, commander of the royal guard. The heir to the crown was his son, Artaxerxes I, who ruled until 425 BC. Don't close the video yet. Before leaving, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. This will help us to grow and to continue doing much more of this content. Now, without anything else to say, we say goodbye.